Oh, just go home, Rory. That wasn't a fan in the gallery. That was Rory McIlroy, talking to himself. During the final round of the US Open, Shinnecock Hills, one of the most ruthless courses in America, the graveyard of champions, a place where even the legends beg for mercy. But this year, the USGA decided to fight the wind before the tournament even started. They saw the forecast, gusts over 35 miles per hour. Panic set in. Memories of 2004 and 2018 haunted them. The year balls rolled off greens, and Phil Mickelson chased a moving ball. So they did the unthinkable. They turned on the sprinklers, slowed the greens to a crawl, 10.5 on the Stimpmeter, widened fairways like highways, syringed the turf to make it soft and receptive. They wanted to protect the field from the weather. The problem? The wind never came. Suddenly, the toughest test in golf turned into a pitch and putt. Wyndham Clark smelled blood. He shot a 64. Jon Rahm went bogey-free, the first time in 22 years at a Shinnecock US Open. The course surrendered to the guys who attacked. But for Rory McIlroy, the softening did the complete opposite. It broke him. Not because the course was too hard, but because it wasn't hard enough. He waited for the cut that never came. He played for a war and got a lawn. On moving day, he shot 40 on the back nine. The patience that wins majors turned into poison. By Sunday morning, after another bogey, he whispered those words to himself. He was done. Here's the twist. Rory defended the setup. He said the USGA made the right call given the forecast. So why did he crumble while Clark thrived? That's the real story we're unpacking today. It wasn't just about the greens, it was about the war happening inside his head. But to understand why the USGA panicked, you have to understand Shinnecock Hills. This isn't just any golf course. This is the course that broke the USGA twice before. In 2004, Tiger Woods stood on the 7th green and watched his putt roll right off the surface. Not because he hit it badly, because the greens were so fast, so glassy, that the ball couldn't stop. Tiger called it unfair. He said the USGA lost control. That wasn't frustration talking. That was a warning. Then came 2018. That was the real disaster. The wind turned Shinnecock into a circus. Balls were blowing off greens in the middle of putts. Players were aiming for the center of greens, watching their approach shots bounce like they'd landed on concrete. The final round was chaos. Phil Mickelson, one of the most respected players in history, lost his mind. On the 13th green, his putt rolled past the hole and kept going, heading off the green. Phil ran after it and swatted it back with his putter. He struck a moving ball, deliberately. He took a 2-stroke penalty and didn't care. He was that frustrated. He later said he wasn't trying to cheat, he was just trying to stop the ball from going into the water. The USGA looked helpless. Only 3 players finished under par for the entire tournament. 3. That performance haunted the USGA. For 8 years they've been trying to live that down. Every time they return to Shinnecock, the nightmares come back. So when the forecast showed 35-mile-per-hour gusts headed for the 2026 Open, they did what any organization would do when terrified. They overcorrected. They dropped the green speeds from the usual 13 or 14 on the Stimpmeter down to 10.5. That's the same speed Corey Pavin faced in 1995. They watered the greens aggressively, syringed them between morning and afternoon waves to keep them receptive. They widened the fairways to football field size. They even kept the rough cut shorter than usual. Their goal was simple: make the course playable. Make it fair. Make sure nobody gets embarrassed again. But here's the thing about trying too hard to avoid disaster. You often create a different one. And that's exactly what happened. Because when the players showed up on Thursday morning, the wind never came. Not a breeze. The conditions were calm. Perfect. And the players looked at those soft greens, those wide fairways, and they licked their lips. This wasn't Shinnecock Hills anymore. This was a resort course. And some players were ready to feast. Wyndham Clark was one of them. But Rory McIlroy, he was looking for something else. And that's where the story gets painful. Rory arrived at Shinnecock with a plan built on patience. He knew the history. He knew the USGA would try to protect the course. In his first round, he shot a solid 1 under 69. He even praised the USGA. He said they were prudent with the setup. He admitted the greens were slow and receptive, but he understood why. The wind forecast scared everyone. He said, they need to be at this point. It seemed like Rory was in control. He was playing smart golf. He wasn't forcing anything. Friday looked even better. He was 2 under at one point. He was climbing the leaderboard. He was doing exactly what a champion does, staying patient, waiting for his opportunities. But then, the back nine happened. The same back nine that has destroyed so many dreams at Shinnecock. He carded 3 bogeys and a double bogey. Suddenly, his momentum stalled. He finished even par for the day. Still in the mix, but the cracks were starting to show. Saturday was moving day. This was his chance to strike. He gained early momentum. 3 birdies. He moved to 2 under for the tournament. He was closing the gap on Wyndham Clark. The crowd could feel it. Rory could feel it. This was the moment champions are made of. This was where he would take control. And then it all fell apart. The back nine again. 5 bogeys. He shot 40 on the back nine. 40. On a course that was playing soft. On a course that was supposed to be easier than usual. He didn't just lose his lead. He lost his rhythm. He lost his patience. And when Rory McIlroy loses patience, he loses everything. By Sunday morning, it was already over. He was out of the race. But the pain wasn't done with him. On the 3rd hole of the final round, he bogeyed the 2nd. Then his approach shot on the 3rd rolled into a bunker. That was the breaking point. He let out a groan. Not a loud one, but you could hear it on the broadcast. And then he said it. The words that would define his entire week. Oh, just go home, Rory. He wasn't talking to anyone else. He was talking to himself. The frustration had finally boiled over. He bogeyed the 5th hole too. He couldn't stop the bleeding. He was mentally exhausted. Physically, he was fine, but inside his head, he was a mess. After the round, he declined to speak to the media. He just packed his bags and left. He even skipped the Travelers' Championship the next week. Here is the cruelest part of this whole story. Rory defended the USGA. He refused to blame the setup. He said, "I think that's more a reflection of the golf course rather than the setup." He knew the USGA had to set it up soft because of the forecast. He understood the logic. He agreed with the logic. But that agreement made his collapse even worse. He couldn't blame the course. He couldn't blame the officials. He had to look in the mirror. And what he saw was a man who played for a battle and got a picnic. His game was built for a war of attrition. He thrives when par is a good score. He thrives when birdies are rare. When the course is soft and easy, he overthinks. He tries to force birdies. He pushes too hard. And that push turned into 5 bogeys on Saturday. But while Rory was drowning in his own head, another player was reading the exact same numbers on the scoreboard and seeing an open door. Wyndham Clark doesn't have the same history with Shinnecock. He doesn't have the scars of 2018. He doesn't have the nightmares of 2004. He showed up on Thursday morning, looked at those soft greens, and saw a scoring opportunity. He didn't wait for the wind. He didn't prepare for a war. He prepared to attack. And attack he did. Clark shot a 6 under 64 in the first round. 64 at a US Open at Shinnecock Hills. That is almost unheard of. The only reason it happened is because the USGA had turned the course into a resort track, but you still have to hit the shots. Clark hit every single one. He was aggressive with his irons. He trusted his putter. He didn't overthink the history. He just played the course in front of him. His second round was a 69. That gave him a 36-hole total that set a new scoring record for a US Open at Shinnecock. He was leading by a massive margin. He went into the final round with a 6-shot lead. 6 shots. In a major championship, that is a mountain for anyone to climb. Clark himself said, "I really felt like I could be in double digits." He meant under par. He felt like he could shoot 10 under or better because the course was that soft. He had that much confidence. And that confidence came directly from the USGA's decision to water everything down. He didn't just win the tournament, he dominated it. He made it look easy. And for die-hard golf fans, that was the ultimate insult. The US Open is supposed to be the toughest test in golf. It's not supposed to look easy, but Clark made it look like a regular tour stop. He played pitch and putt while the USGA watched in horror. Jon Rahm also carded a bogey-free 68. That was the first bogey-free round at a Shinnecock-hosted US Open in 22 years. 22 years. That stat alone tells you everything you need to know. The course had lost its teeth. The USGA had neutered the beast. Clark took the trophy. But the real question that weekend wasn't about who lifted the silver. It was about who destroyed the course's soul. The fans were furious, and they made their voices heard. One fan wrote, "I get why they softened the greens. I really do. But this is disgusting. This green plays twice as firm for the members on a typical Tuesday. 77-year-old retired guys play a tougher hole than the best players on earth. That quote sums up the anger perfectly. A retired amateur plays a harder version of Shinnecock than the best golfers in the world did during the US Open. How does that make any sense? Another fan said, "Not my US Open. I applaud looking at the wind forecast and adjusting, but this is too cautious. Shinnecock is not supposed to play soft. Put the teeth back in the course." These aren't just random haters. These are the people who love this tournament. These are the people who watch every year because they want to see the players suffer. They want to see the drama. They want to see the impossible shots. They didn't sign up for a birdie festival. Some fans even joked that Golf Canada had infiltrated the USGA. They said, "Never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd see Shinnecock cosplaying as TPC Toronto." That's a brutal comparison. TPC Toronto is a nice course, but it's not a US Open venue. It's not a war zone. And that's exactly what Shinnecock was supposed to be. A war zone. The USGA was stuck in a terrible position. This is the part of the story that nobody wants to talk about. If they had kept the greens firm and the wind had hit, the tournament would have been a disaster. Balls would have blown off the greens again. Play would have been suspended. Players would have been furious. The headlines would have been worse than 2018. They were trying to avoid a catastrophe. But the wind never came. The forecast was wrong, and the USGA was left holding the bag. They looked foolish. They looked scared. They looked like an organization that had lost its nerve. They took the teeth out of the course, and the course bit them in the ass anyway. The tournament was a success for Clark, but it was a failure for the USGA's reputation. They thought they were protecting the tournament. In reality, they handed the trophy to the one guy who didn't care about their fears. This is where the story gets even more ironic. Before the tournament even started, Rory McIlroy warned the USGA. He said, "They're just going to have to be wary of not getting the greens too fast, making sure it doesn't get out of control." He was right. He understood the risk. He originally thought the watering plan was stupid, but then he changed his mind. He came around after understanding the weather forecast. He even predicted that Shinnecock would bite back. He said, "I'd say people should expect the Shinnecock they've gotten to know over the past couple of decades." He was wrong on both counts. The course didn't bite back, and he was the one who got bitten. He prepared for the Shinnecock he knew. The hard one, the cruel one, the one that makes you grind for every single par. But that course never showed up. A soft course showed up, a forgiving course, and Rory's mind couldn't adjust. He was playing chess while Clark was playing checkers. Rory was waiting for the course to fight him. Clark was taking what the course gave him. That contradiction, the victim defending his executioner, is exactly why this Open left such a bitter taste. Rory couldn't blame the setup because he knew the USGA had no choice. But that lack of blame didn't save him. It exposed him. It showed that his problem wasn't the course conditions. His problem was his own expectations. He expected a war. He got a walk in the park. And his game, which is built for the war, fell apart in the park. This is a crisis of identity for the USGA. What is the US Open supposed to be? If it's the toughest test in golf, did the USGA fail that test? The answer is yes. They absolutely failed. They were so scared of the past that they ruined the present. They sacrificed the spirit of the championship to avoid a few bad headlines. The players didn't win this US Open. The USGA gave it away. Clark won because he played the conditions perfectly. But the conditions were a joke by US Open standards. The fans felt robbed. The players felt confused, and Rory McIlroy felt broken. The USGA now has to decide what they want to be. Do they want to protect the field from the weather, or do they want to protect the integrity of the championship? They can't do both. If they try to protect the field, they end up with a soft course and a runaway winner. If they let the course be hard, they risk a disaster. But at least that disaster would be honest. At least it would be the course doing what it was designed to do. The 2026 US Open at Shinnecock Hills will be remembered for one thing. Not the winner, not the drama. It will be remembered as the year the USGA blinked. They blinked hard, and in that moment of weakness, they lost the trust of the very fans who make this tournament special. So where does that leave us? Rory goes home empty-handed. Clark walks away with the silver. The USGA walks away with a black eye. And we are left asking the same question we asked at the start. Did the USGA ruin Shinnecock, or was Rory just mentally outmatched? Here is my take. I think the USGA ruined the test. They took a links course and turned it into a resort course. They took the teeth out of the beast and expected it to bite, but a toothless beast is just a pet, and Rory is a hunter who hunts beasts, not pets. Clark is a guy who plays whatever is in front of him, and on that week, what was in front of him was an easy target. What do you think? Was the USGA too soft, or was Rory just too fragile? Drop your verdict in the comments. I want to hear the real take from the real fans. And if you want the unfiltered breakdown of every major controversy in golf, hit that subscribe button. We're not here to kiss the ring. We're here to tell you the truth. We'll see you in the next one.